nature in the future. They also, when you look at trees, you're only seeing just this part, right? Where the part down below, the roots, go on sometimes for many miles. There's actually a scientist that did a study with an old growth maple tree back east, and they found that the roots went for 2 miles, and they stopped at that point trying to figure it out. So you can imagine every tree, how interconnected they are for miles. So this forest is a forest of individual trees, but it's a solid forest of a unit of one being too, and they go on forever connected. And what's so cool about being human is we have an ability that very few animals or other beings have. One of our gifts is the gift of empathy. And that means that we can really feel what other beings feel. So when we go up into a tree, or we sit next to a tree, and we ask it to come into us, and we come into it, we really have the ability to experience the world from the tree's point of view. And that really changes everything. You can go into trees and do this and get answers, epiphanies, ask questions, have deep thoughts about things, about life. I mean, trees, if you've got a lot of anger in your life and you're having a hard time, you can go out and give it to a tree and they'll dissipate into the earth through the roots. You know, you can cry with a tree, you can find joy. I mean, they're the friends that are the greatest friends. They just never stop giving. And the more you have a connection to them, the more deeper the love grows, and the more you're willing to protect them and look after them. And old growth trees are just the most powerful beings. A giant, there's not a lot left. I mean, if you think about it, most old growth forests were cut by the 1700s all the way to the Mississippi River from the East Coast. There was hardly an old growth left, north or south. And in the state of California, there's only about 5% of the old redwoods left. And in some of the wilderness areas around the state, there are still many old growth trees, but if you look at it from certain viewpoints, you would have to say there's probably only maybe 10% tops. So we've really done a lot. This forest here, as beautiful as it is, this is not an old growth forest. This is a second growth forest. This was logged probably around 1900, late 1800s, 1900. This forest here has a way about it that's like old growth because we've been earth caretaking it or gardening it, you know? So it's full of wildlife. It has a lot of the characteristics of an old growth forest. But a true old growth forest has never been cut down at all by a human being. No significant changes, no roads. Maybe the most you'll ever notice in an old growth forest, maybe there's been some cattle, but ideally not even that. And when you go into a place like that, I mean, it is, if you haven't been into an old growth forest, you know, like a wilderness area, it's a place you have to put on your list to do. You really get a chance to see how it was before humans went on this crazy rampage we've done with the planet, you know? And it's, we are not only we have that ability for empathy, but we have that ability for love and for care. Like, often people have asked me, like, what's one of our gifts? What's one of the reasons we're here? And from a natural point of view, I think we have this masterful ability to be earth caretakers, to work with the forest and help it to grow, and nature to grow and be healthy. We're like the earth spirits. I don't know if any of you guys ever heard of or believe in earth spirits, but I know these things exist. And they're like water and sun to plants. They're the energetic entities that help facilitate plants growing, as well as sun and water. And human beings could fit right in on that. We could be, instead of just being a force of destruction, we can be a force of good and actually caretake the planet. Now, does nature need us to do that? It did fine long before we ever came around. But I'm clear now, we're a part of it. We would be greatly missed if we decided to check out, you know. But we're kind of on a path to check out if we don't change the way we live. It's pretty serious right now. And so we've got to, like, own that earth caretaking part and start to implement it. One way you can make a huge difference is plant trees. Plant them. One old growth tree, giant old growth tree, will house at any given day of its life over 100,000 beings. Can you imagine? Talk about a mother. There's a mother. So you plant a tree and it lives 1,000 years. Imagine what you're doing, the good you're doing. There was a guy that a number of years ago, I think around 20 or so, he started a group called Tree People down in LA. Anybody ever heard of that? They've planted many billions of trees now. And people sometimes they say, well, how much can I do? I'm one person. Well, one person came up with that idea. And really, if you think about it, all great ideas started with one person. And then it spread from there. So every person here could be the one that could change it all. Don't ever doubt it. And I think having a relationship with nature, a personal relationship, is a way to start, because then you feel what's going on, you love it, you defend what you love. If you're removed from it, you don't defend it. You're not aware of what's happening until it's too late. And we've got to save our forests. And we've got to have a relationship with trees. So one of the greatest ways is to climb them. Get to be a kid again. And I mean, how many of you guys remember back when you were kids? Did you climb trees?
Yeah.
Unless you had overprotective parents that wouldn't let you. And that's another thing that's happening today, is the children growing up today are not allowed to be out in nature much. And then they have to be careful. They're going to get too dirty, or it's not safe. You might fall. And so they're overprotected, and they grow up without any connection to anything. And yeah, you could fall, I mean, but I always kind of put it in perspective. You guys drove up here in a car, right? Tell me what's more dangerous than that. And yet we do that, and we don't even think about it. But really, if you want to do something insane, get in a car and drive on a freeway. I don't think there's anything more insane than that. And your life is out of your hands on a freeway because there's other people driving around crazy, right? You're in control of yourself when you climb a tree. You can have a say in what happens to you. So overprotection of kids and stuff is just, I think it just really does a lot of damage. But here's the other thing. We grow up, right? We're all adults now, and we stop having fun. Like, why did we stop climbing trees?